Will five-star wide receiver Dakorien Moore ditch LSU to be a Buckeye? Will five-star wide receiver Dakorien Moore ditch LSU to be a Buckeye?
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The day we have all been waiting for is almost here. 2024 is the spring game is just around the corner. Looking forward to watching the Buckeyes as they end spring practice in 2024, and also looking forward to seeing a lot of big-time recruits flock to the shoe as well. Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to a feel-good Friday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast, and I'd like to thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen every day. During today's show, Locked On's recruiting analyst Brian Smith will be back with us to dive into the recruitments of LSU verbal commit Dakorien Moore, who will be in the shoe tomorrow. Also, a couple 2026 recruits, Jakeem Stewart and running back Javion Osborne, who just got an offer that was extended from Carlos Lockwood. This is a fun show the day before the spring game. You know we're going to enjoy it. And as you welcome in Brian Smith, I'd like to thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On College Network. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. Brian, the spring game for Ohio State is this weekend, and we all know that when there's a spring game, there will be some big-time recruits that will be in the house, maybe for the first time or maybe for the first of many times, as trying to figure out where they're going to play college football. There is a wide receiver, Dakorien Moore, who is currently committed to LSU, but he is taking a visit to Ohio State this weekend, and I think the timing of his visit is big, it is huge, and I'm curious to hear what you have to say about this young man being an LSU commit coming to Ohio State this weekend.
His recruitment's wide open as far as I'm concerned. I don't believe he's really committed to LSU, nor do I believe he's leaning any one particular place. He's a five-star receiver from Duncanville, and for those of you who don't know, that's the best program in the state of Texas. They're rolling. There's a lot of little unique pieces to his recruitment, like LSU has the best quarterback and arguably the best player in the country committed. He's met with him before, so he likes that. But his dad, the head coach at Duncanville, he's also the father of the guy that Oregon just hired as the receiver coach. And they're recruiting him heavily. He's been out there, and Texas really wants him, and it's hard to turn down Texas if you're an in-state kid. This is arguably the most intriguing recruitment in the country. Dakorien's visit to Ohio State's important, but this is a long process. I could care one iota less if he commits to Ohio State this weekend. That's how much stock I would put in it. Zero. This is going to National Signing Day.
You know, you say that about a lot of kids in Florida, and TJ Alford being one recently where you're like,
Right.
hey, I don't know where he's leaning, but even if he does verbally commit to Ohio State, I really wouldn't put much stock into it. It's the same thing with this kid here. Is it not just a Florida thing, but are you seeing more athletes around the country that are at the top of their position really being more, hey, I may verbally say this, but my actions show that my verbal commitment might not be as concrete as you would think? Is that becoming more of the norm right now?
It is, and there's a lot of reasons for it. A lot of kids get money just to take visits.
Yeah.
Straight up. I mean, they're getting bought just to take visits is part of it. A lot of kids are not sure about coaches because the coaches change jobs so frequently now. You know, like when Alford left Ohio State to go to Michigan, he'd been in Ohio State for a minute.
Yes.
You know, he's kind of an exception. Those things don't happen. There's a lot of guys, it's 1 to 3 years and they move. 1 to 3. So kids don't have a concern about the school, but like, who's going to coach me? Who's going to be my mentor? So there are a lot of reasons for it. And then at the end of the day, a lot of them just like the attention. I'm not going to mention some kids. There's a few kids that I'm annoyed with beyond belief. We're not going to talk about them on today's show.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I just hope this kid goes away. Like it's just not fun to cover anymore. There's a lot of different factors involved.
When you watch his film, what do you see?
Flat out speed. This is a kid that'll run by the defense, and he can make acrobatic catches. He'll make you miss. He's got some route running. He's at Duncanville, which they're well coached, but it's a downhill running team first.
Okay.
And then on top of it, if you creep up those safeties, man. Dakorion's faster than everybody else you got. More than likely, there might be one other guy that can run with him on the field, even in Dallas. So it's difficult. And their quarterback's really, really good. Like, he's getting ready to visit Texas. So he can get him the ball.
Yeah.
I think this is a program that Ohio State and everybody kind of has to recruit. And he's a guy that's got all the skills you want on the field, off the field, that like he should play early. Even if he goes to Texas, which has got a loaded receiver room. He went to LSU, it's always got receiver. It wouldn't matter. He's going to play early somewhere. Play slot. He can play outside of flanker. Needs to get a little bigger. Like Jeremiah is going to be I'm sure he'll play boundary most of the time for the Buckeyes, but this kid's very versatile too. Jet sweeps, screens, whatever you'd want to do. Ryan Day would have a lot of fun with Dakorien Moore in his offense.
I think that part about his versatility, even though he may need to gain a little bit of weight and size, which I think has come to be expected. Jeremiah Smith is so abnormal in everything. His makeup, his build, the way he carries himself. He's so normal. Like, I'm not even like, we bring him up in conversations all the time, but in this one, I'm not going to like belabor that point at all. But when a player comes to Ohio State or any school around the country, I used to be a person, Brian, that used to be like, well, you got to put on weight. That's not really a good thing. We all know that in recruiting, but I kind of expected. I expect an offensive lineman to put on weight. And if you're a heavier tight end in high school, my thought is maybe you're a better fit as an offensive lineman, not as a tight end, because you're going to put that extra weight on. So I don't really view Dakorien having to put weight on as a bad thing, more of something that is expected. And I do think wherever he goes, he will do that. Talk about the positives. What do you see negatively when you watch him play?
I just think he just needs to get stronger. That's about it.
Yeah.
I know that's a boring answer, but like, he's one of the more polished kids you're going to see. And that's why he's arguably the best receiver in the country. Speed, pretty good route runner for his age. I mean, there's still a ways to go. I'm sure that Hartline and everybody else would like to work with him, but he's so much more advanced than most kids. And finally, he's got a motor that there's, it's not roll out the ball and let it happen. He's got to learn the playbook and some of those things, but it's just strength, getting off bump coverage against college players, not high school players, that he'll have to work on.
That strength part, and I think that this year people are going to get more of a better handle on the strength of the football. I remember a couple of years ago, Tui Maloa was a freshman, and he played quite a bit as a freshman. And he said, hey, they said, what's the biggest difference between high school and college? He's like, hey, man, these boys are big. They're strong. And he's going up against 300-plus pound offensive linemen. He was playing defensive end, but he quickly realized the strength is one. There's a different level of strength for a college O-lineman versus a high school O-lineman. And that doesn't matter what level of high school or what or what state you're from. The level of physicality and strength you need is different. It's the same thing goes on the outside at receiver. Once he builds that strength, that will help him beat one-on-one coverage or press-man coverage, or be able to make some of those tough catches in traffic. And I think Hartline is a guy that can help him with that. But also, I wonder, because Carlos Lachlan, the new running back coach at Ohio State, was in a presser yesterday or earlier this week, and talked about him being an elite relationship builder. Now, I know that room is Brian Hartline's room to recruit, but I wonder how or if Hartline will get some help to recruit a player like this that is getting looks by every school in the country.
Well, I mean, I can't remember a school recruiting one position consistently as well as OSU does receiver. I mean, you could argue on like SC there for a while at quarterback, early to mid. Yeah, that was crazy. And that's why they were so good. Every next guy, they'd wait 2-3 years. They'd wait their turn, which you never see happen anywhere. No. And then they'd be good to go. But I mean, I don't know how to explain that. And Hartline, and now that they got, I mean, it's still bizarre to me. You stole a head coach to become a coordinator. I mean, Chip Kelly of all people, and I know him and Ryan are tight and all that, but I just don't think it's very difficult for them to recruit receivers. It's Ohio State. They've got tradition. They've got a lot of likable guys that don't mind recruiting. Chip's obviously the oddball guy, but I doubt he's recruiting that much. He's just a scheme player in the whole fit of what's going on at OSU. I just think they've got it easy. They kind of pick who they want, and the kids come in and the kids just kind of decide. They're going to get 3 really good receivers every year, just as an example. And then for a while, it was like that with Larry Johnson at D-line. He's gotten older. I don't think he's as effective a recruiter, but he's still pretty good. But that's the overall theme. Like, they're picking, they're not really recruiting. I think that's the easiest way to put it.
From Moore, Dakorien Moore, who is the number one receiver by some recruiting databases in the class of 2025, to the kid that is the number one overall recruit in his class in 2026. That is Jakeem Stewart. He's visiting Ohio State this weekend, and I'm curious to hear what Brian has to say about him. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. 6'6", 270 pounds, out of New Orleans, Louisiana. This dude is an animal. He is a dog. And the fact that Ohio State's getting him on campus this weekend, one, is big, but also you got to start early to recruit players of the caliber of Stewart.
Yeah, he's a kid that I met in 8th grade, and I'd have taken him in 8th grade.
Wow.
Yeah, he won the Rivals camp in the New Orleans area as an 8th grader.
Wow.
Yeah, so he was advanced. He works with the Edge Assassins. The D-line coach for that group is the St. Aug D-line coach. He might be the head coach now. I don't remember, but he's at St. Aug in New Orleans, which is a famous program, and they kick the crap out of most people they play. They're pretty darn good. I think he's as advanced technically for a big end. Like I know this probably would have before a lot of people's time. One of my all-time favorite NFL players is Ed Too Tall Jones, played for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
He was 6'8". I mean, he was really big. But this kid's like that with the long levers and all that. He still knows how to use his hands. He's got multiple moves that he uses really, really well. He enjoys it. He's slimmed down and changed his body in the last 6 to 10 months. He also is a kid that just wants more. He messaged a buddy of mine that does 5-on-5 tournaments and said, like, where's the next one? Like, he's always looking to go kick somebody's ass. You got to have those kind of guys on your roster if you want to compete for titles. He is a first-year starter at a major program. So, good kid, too. Nice guy. Humble. He's had a really tough upbringing. Parents aren't around, the whole nine, but he hasn't let it bother him. He's the kind of guy you root for.
You know, people have given Larry Johnson a lot of bad attention recently about the recruiting side of things. And sometimes players not developing at the same rate that they used to, which I don't think it's always been the wisest thing to criticize Larry Johnson for certain things. Yeah, Garcia mentioned it. You know it. You're going to win some. You're going to lose some. He has lost some recently. That doesn't mean he's bad. Maybe you have to alter some things to adapt to the players that are in this generation, which isn't a problem. It's just an obstacle you have to eventually get over. I wonder, since Larry Johnson is getting up in age, he can potentially recruit this young man, stay at Ohio State to recruit him to be the to be his D-line coach. But Larry Johnson might be gone. And if I'm a recruit, Larry Johnson's in his early 70s. I wonder how Larry Johnson's age will impact the viewpoint of Stewart in the recruitment, saying, I want to play for Larry Johnson, but I am not sure how much longer he's going to be out there in Columbus.
There's no fixing that. That's the one thing that never loses. Father Time is undefeated, and people, parents, guardians, high school coaches, etc. While they probably respect Larry, I've heard he's a nice guy. I don't know him, but I'm sure they're probably a little wary about that too. And I think they're going to lose most of their D-line battles moving forward because of it.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything you can do about it.
Right.
So to be honest, I think it would be better for him to announce his retirement and then finish like this year, whatever, like have a definitive plan. So there's no, because, you don't want to get towards the end or whatever. And, like kids sign and then he retires and then one out of the whatever. Like, that's just a disaster. It's better to get it out in the open, but it's not easy to replace Larry either. And we both know, because they're looking for any way to get clicks, the media would ask Ryan, who's the next guy? And that's why they don't. So there's no good answer here, but it's going to cause a problem.
This offseason, funny thing you bring that up, because there was a time this offseason that question was a topic of conversation.
Sure.
And even on this show, not going to shy away from it, we talked about Jason Taylor, because Jason Taylor's name kept being thrown around as being somebody to come up from Miami, to be in Columbus, to coach the D-line and maybe be the next guy after Larry Johnson. And I don't know why it stopped the conversations at Ohio State, but ultimately there was a presser. There was a few pressers. And all of a sudden, like, that conversation quickly shifted. And I think it shifted before spring practice started. But I think that's just what's going to happen. If you don't have somebody else there that the recruits know is the next man in line, it's the unfortunate thing about coaching, about recruiting. If there's no certainty that you're going to be there to coach me throughout my career, I might not go there to begin with. And so I really wonder how Ohio State navigates this recruitment with this really good football player, because if they navigate it correctly, they can get him on campus, but how do you keep him there? If they navigate it wrong, they might not get him on campus at all. So it's a very interesting way and path Ohio State must travel on this recruitment. And, I mean, it's Father Time. And, Brian, I don't have an answer. I don't know if you do either, because I would love to get him in Columbus, but, certainty about Larry Johnson's future, I think that impacts this young man in a big way.
Yeah, getting to the Taylor point, he played pro ball in Miami. His family's there. Good luck.
Right.
He doesn't need money.
No.
He's already got a gold jacket. He's just going to hang out in the warm weather. Unless he got a head coaching job somewhere, he's probably just going to be the D-line coach at Miami. He doesn't need the money.
No.
He's got more than he can spend. So with Stewart, you recruit him as best you can, and look at the Alford situation. I think Loughlin's as good a running back coach as there is in college football. He's a great guy. I've met him. Sometimes you walk into something too. They're going to have to spend to get somebody, and I don't know what the list would be. I don't follow it like I used to, because guys move so much. I kind of gave up on that. But Ohio State will get a good coach, and in the long run, I think it would be better for him to bow out in another year and just be done with it if they can get somebody. And I'm sure he would work with Ryan on, hey, here are my suggestions, because all these guys talk to each other. I got buddies that are trainers, and they tell me who they talk to, and it's the list you'd want to hear about, and that's part of the deal. So they'll figure it out. It's probably going to cost them a couple of recruits, though. There's just no fixing that, because it's about relationships, and relationships. That's where the kids go. They pick the person, not the school.
What is the impact of Stewart coming to Ohio State at this point in his recruitment to the spring game this weekend?
It gives him a chance. That kid's probably never been to the North.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Oh, yeah. Literally, family situation's terrible. So he's never had money, and now he's able to start kind of looking around. They'll find ways to get him to go places. He doesn't know anything about us. If you said, where's Ohio on the map? I'm not sure Jakeem would know. He's never had any interest of going. He's just trying to eat his next meal.
Right.
So this is a kid that's now in a better spot, but he's always been in the greater New Orleans area or just outside of it. Those people are happy. They're the nicest people and all that. They're very happy. They kind of stick to where they're at. So the LSU people think they're getting him, but LSU people think they're always getting everybody from Louisiana too. That's the other thing. I don't know what he's going to do, but I bet he takes visits to Southern Cal, Oklahoma, Miami, and all these different places over. He's been to Miami recently. He's just now starting to learn. This is important because you can't take the second visit prior to the first one. You know what I mean? This for Ohio State, they need him on campus 2-3 times and then an official visit. They're not going to get him on campus as much as LSU. It's just not logistically possible.
Correct.
They got to hit a home run between now and every other point in time that they get him on campus, in-home visits. Everything's got to line up, because otherwise he probably will go to LSU, because that's an easy pick. So it's the first step, though, is this coming weekend. So we'll see how it goes.
We recently touched on Loughlin with Brian earlier in this show. Man, I want to bring him up again because Loughlin is already busy recruiting at Ohio State, and he recently offered a talented running back. We'll dive into that next. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. With it being the early stages of the Major League Baseball season, I know a lot of people are trying to wait and see what the weather is going to do before buying tickets to maybe a Guardians game or a Reds game or wherever you might be. You want to watch Major League Baseball. The weather might dictate if you're going or not. If the weather is nice and you want a place to get last-minute tickets, definitely head to the Gametime app. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Billiards Plus. Billiards Plus has the best selection of pool tables, game tables, shuffleboard tables, and more. And the best service in Central Ohio. Billiards Plus also carries grills that have up to 30-year warranties. Everything you need for in-home and even backyard entertainment is at Billiards Plus. Billiards Plus carries the best pool tables from Brunswick, Ahausen, Canada, Billiards, and more. They are family owned and operated, and when you talk to the staff at Billiards Plus, you know you're talking to an expert who won't steer you wrong. No matter the season, Billiards Plus has you covered for all your indoor and outdoor entertainment needs. Kenny, Sarah, and the whole staff will always go above and beyond to give you the best customer service in the industry. Billiards Plus. Visit their showroom on Dublin Center Drive in Dublin. I wasn't sure, Brian, the next time we talked being on today's show, we would talk about multiple kids from the class of 2026. I truly thought, hey, spring game this weekend, let's go ahead and talk about the guys that are in the class of 2025 that the Buckeyes are trying to recruit in this current cycle. But then I was reading that Osborne, Javian Osborne, I hope I said his name correctly, also a kid, he's from Texas in Forney, Texas. Never heard of the city in my lifetime, but I figured it's Texas football. It's a good brand of ball there. That Lachlan recently offered this kid a scholarship, and I was like, oh, he talks about being an elite relationship builder. The players at Ohio State already knew him, and they endorsed him from their time when they were being recruited. But now he's going after Osborne as well, a kid in Texas. I'm excited. One, I'm excited for Lachlan to see what he does, but I'm also excited to see how he recruits talent to fill Ohio State's running back room.
He's a very particular guy. He has a style that he likes and all that. But if you watch Javian Osborne play, it doesn't take, he's kind of like Travion. He makes first guy miss and he outruns everybody else.
Yeah.
And he's got some physicality to him. He's got good vision and all that. But it's really just raw athleticism, which is running back's number one trait. If you can't really run or you're not really, really big, it's probably not going to work out because you get beat up so bad anyway. He makes the first guy miss almost every time.
Yeah.
He's got a little Barry Sanders, Ricky Waters kind of to him. Like the first guy could get highlighted real quick. I also like the fact that he is very good after contact at keeping his balance. He's been coached well, keeping his pads low. After contact, he'll continue running, sometimes break away still. He can go to any school he wants. Texas is the rumored leader because, he's a Dallas area kid or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's a long way to his recruitment coming to a close. So Ohio State getting him on campus is the first step. And it's kind of cool that Lachlan's going all in because this might be the best running back in the class of 26.
I would think so. And I haven't done a deep dive into all of the running backs here. But if there's a kid out here that's having over 2,200 rushing yards, 39 rushing touchdowns as a sophomore in high school, I would say, hey, you have a good shot to be the best back in the class. Do you worry about kids at his age as a sophomore getting as many carries as he got last year? He got 290 carries last year, has 2 more years of high school ball left. Do you worry about the body holding up when a high school kid is getting that many carries as a sophomore and probably going to get between 250 to 300 over the next 2 years?
It's not ideal.
No.
It's just not. There's nothing you can do about it because, you're going to get that guy once. If you're the head coach, what are you going to do?
Right.
So you can't fix it. You just got to live with it. And that's why they poke and prod these kids on unofficial visits. They want to know who's healthy, because that's the exact same the NFL does at the combine. There's no way around it. Your best ability is to be reliable.
Yeah.
So, but man, he's a downhill runner. He's going to take some punishment. He's going to deliver some too. We'll just have to see how healthy he is by the time he arrives at Ohio State or Texas or wherever he decides to go.
There was a time that I won't say worried about Ohio State running back recruiting, but also I was realizing they may want to go after a couple more guys. Alfred did a phenomenal job recruiting. Don't get me wrong. I think my biggest thing was players are getting injured. And I bring up the durability aspect of Osborne because Ohio State's dealt with over the past couple of years guys getting injured, from Evan Pryor tearing his ACL a few years ago to Henderson being banged up for a couple of years. Mine Williams banged up for a couple of years. Last year's season was ended early due to an injury. And I bring up that durability for Osborne on purpose, physical running style, but also he can make you miss. He's good with the balance and all those types of things. But I'm curious. I really hope that over the next couple of years, they find a way to lessen his workload, which I don't think is probably going to happen. But I would just be hopeful, not just for me, Ohio State recruiting, but mainly because for him and his future. High school kids want to run the ball. They want to have fun. They want to play with their boys. But at some point, you may be like, hey, coach, give me a few less carries. I want to save my body to be able to play 3 years in college, not 2.5, because of a body that can't withstand the hurt that happens. But I really wonder if Ohio State's going to do their due diligence and even maybe go a little bit overboard to make sure that they're getting the guys on campus, that their bodies are healthy and that can withstand the beating that happens in college football.
I don't see how you can go any other route. I mean, Ohio State's been a little snake bit in the last couple of years. Part of it's just bad luck.
Yeah, correct.
But at the same time, you also got to be under the consideration they're playing against teams in the Big Ten that are physical, that are big. Maybe there's something in their training room or something, but like some of this stuff, like ACLs and stuff, that stuff just happens.
Correct.
Guy makes a jump cut, it just doesn't end well. It's part of the deal. Running back might be the highest attrition spot in pro sports in America, not just football. Like it's horrific. So you go through it. I know that Tony had told me a couple of years ago he only had 4 running backs and he was worried. Then at the end of the year, Dallas Hayden was starting the game against Michigan. So he was right. So I was like, I think you're all right. He goes, no, 4 is not enough. And I'm like, really? He goes, no. And he was right. So it is what it is. You just got to try to take 2 running backs in every class pretty much anymore. And just what happens is what happens.
Last thing here for you. We did it last week with Jeremiah Smith, but today I got to ask you a question about Julian Sand. He is currently right now in the mix in the Buckeyes quarterback competition to be a starter right now. I don't know if he is 3, 2. I don't think he's the number 1 guy for the option right now. But would it shock you if Day decides at some point this year to start Sand at quarterback?
If he does, that means something went wrong. That's the thing. And that can happen. I was always a little iffy on the K-State guy because I didn't know if he'd be a fit for the Buckeyes. And I still don't.
Right.
The offense that he played in, and it's nothing against, because Klein, who just went to A&M as the OC, he had played there. They just don't have the weapons to run the offense like Ohio State. There's no proof.
Right.
But he's humongous. He's 240 or whatever. Has a strong arm, and he is a dump truck coming around the end on RPO. That's like an H-back playing quarterback. So there's ways to make it happen, but I just don't think the offense is going to be the way that they would like it to, although Chip might like it a little better than Ryan.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the reasons he wanted him to come, because like he's the perfect guy to be around this kid. But if he gets banged up, you're back to a more of a pro style guy, and we'll kind of see how that goes. I don't know how it's going to work out, man. I really don't, because playing a freshman at Ohio State is just a recipe for disaster. It just is. So there's too much pressure. Notre Dame, Alabama, Texas, Ohio State. There's like playing quarterback at those schools as a freshman usually ends very poorly.
Yes.
So at least for the short term. But saying is accurate. He's an intellectual kid. We knew about him as like a sophomore in high school, as like a dude. We'd heard about him as a freshman, but by his sophomore year, it was like, okay, he had an offer from everybody. Can he handle the beating? Can he make all the checks and do all that stuff? I have my doubts, but if he ends up starting, he does.
I really appreciate Brian coming on the show once again. He is Locked On's recruiting analyst. You can follow Brian on X at FBScout_Florida. You can follow me on the same platform at jstevens07. Send all emails to jstevens317 at gmail.com. It's a Feel Good Friday. We'll see you next time.